What's going on, everybody? This is the Undefeated by Choice podcast brought to you by steelfist. And first and foremost, before we get anything, we got the card February 21st. Make sure you make it out. Get your tickets now at steelfistfight.com. This is a stat card. I just finished up an interview yesterday with Mr. Bryce, my big brother Bryce. And it was a great interview. I'll be doing his opponent next Friday. I have a number of other fighters on the card that I'll be interviewing coming up in the week. But what I wanted to talk about, as I have been talking about, these UFC events, and really, I just listened to the Josh Thompson, Big John McCarthy podcast, and they were talking about how it's important to mention all these other organizations, ONE and Bellator, and just not the UFC because of the whole controversy where Brendan Schaub said if you ain't in the UFC, you ain't shit, which obviously most people don't agree with. Best fighters in the world are all over the place. Case in point, Demetrius Johnson is not in the UFC, and he's one of the best fighters to ever do it. So I will do my best to study and pay attention to more organizations, and it just makes sense because what I do is I push other organizations. I'm pushing the number one fight promotion in Utah, which is steelfist. That's who I've aligned with because they're the best. It's our job to push all these other organizations with great fighters in it. So with that being said, I'm going to go back and talk about the press conference with Israel Adesanya and Yoel Romero. This one was kind of, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. And I know I've been seeming like a hater lately with all things UFC. I don't know what it is. Well, it is. I know what it is. I just don't think that they're doing their job to get us excited about fights. And it's showing because I'm just not excited about a lot of the stuff that they're doing. Of course, I'm excited about this fight. This in particular fight, I'm excited about. I want to see it just because I love Yoel Romero and Israel's just amazing. Just absolutely insane how talented this young man is. So of course I'm excited about this fight, but just their way of pushing fights and promoting fights lately, I'm not into. And Luke Thomas actually was the one to point out these press conferences that the UFC is doing and how they're not press conferences. As a matter of fact, they really limit the press on what they are allowed to do in these. I remember the last one with Conor McGregor when a reporter an actual credited press reporter asked a tough question and he got booed out of the stadium not only by the fans, but also Dana cut him off. Conor didn't answer his question. I spoke about it on my Facebook. And I'm not going to get further into it because I don't want to give any more press to that, but or any more attention to that. I'm not pressed, but I don't want to give any more attention to that. But they don't really give them real questions. They're just these softball questions. What do you think about your opponent's last performance? What do you think about him? What do you just kind of not real tough questions. So it's not really a press conference. It's just a pep rally to get people excited for the fights, which, okay, if that's what you want to do, if that's what we're going to do, then let's do it. Let's get excited about these fights. And I would have been really excited to see Weili Zhang and Joanna Jędrzejczyk there. I know Joanna's in Florida and Weili's in Thailand right now. But I feel like they could have got him out. There. I know they're bringing Israel in from Auckland. Yoel's in Miami as well. So I feel like they could have done more to get everybody there because that's a huge fight too. That's an exciting fight as well. Weili Zhang is phenomenal, and she's young, up and coming, and exciting and powerful. She's defying all the odds. I did not think that she was going to do what she did to Jessica Andrade. Jessica is an animal, and Weili walked straight through her. So that was very impressive. So I'm excited about that fight as well. But they didn't have them. They just had Izzy and Yoel. And one thing that really got me upset right at the beginning is Yoel, he doesn't speak the best English. Basically, "I love you" is all we know that he's can say, and he says often. And he's really everything's good. Just kind of a lot of like what Anderson Silva. He just knows a lot of like his English is broken, and it's just a lot of just positive things. He just wants to be real positive, and he's a happy guy. But you don't really get to get in depth because he's not very comfortable with the language, and I think he, just feels comfortable saying what he knows and talking about what he knows about, not going into depth. So he doesn't really speak he doesn't really speak in English that well. So, the UFC knowing this fighter, they didn't even have a translator on hand. Like he started speaking in Cuban, and everyone was kind of looking around like, what did he say? And Dana himself said, "Oh, we didn't have a translator ready." And it's like, so you brought a guy who doesn't speak the best of English to sell this fight, and you don't even have a translator ready. You don't even have anybody available to do it. Luckily, I don't know, maybe someone jumped out of the crowd who speaks Cuban and started doing the translating. It was a little off, because so then I was like, did you only expect Izzy to do this entire interview? Did you only expect him to do all the talking to sell the entire fight by himself? Like, I don't understand that thought process. And I've never really been impressed with what the UFC's done with their translators. Like, even in the ring, the post-fight interviews, when they have somebody in there, it's like it's like whoever's speaking will go on for like 10 minutes giving an answer in their native tongue, and then the translator will be like, yeah, he wants to thank the fans and thank his team and thank his opponent, like, and then that's it. It's like, I know he said more than that. There's no way he didn't say more than that. It's not possible. Like, he went on for 10 minutes. There's no way he thanked 3 people. Like, it's pretty annoying. And then, like, I'm always like, UFC, take notes from the LDS Church, because they have conferences and I remember growing up listening to conference talks and knowing that whatever was being said was translated across the world in, like, hundreds of different languages, and it was like in real time. So I feel like you could take a note from that and find like translators, so these fighters can be comfortable speaking what they really think and not just trying to translate or trying to, process the words in English so they can get it across to an American audience, because it's worldwide. It's a worldwide company. How have you not figured out how to properly translate what these fighters are saying, so they don't have to learn? Like, they say it's harder to sell these fighters from different countries because they don't speak English, and it's hard for the American market. That's your own fault. If you can't translate what they're saying, that's your fault. That's on the company. Do a better job. You're a big enough company. You could put some people in some jobs translating, and it would be not an issue. And so I've always found that kind of annoying, and I found that particularly weird for a press conference with only 2 guys, and you only have the ability to really only hear one of them talk. So that was a little off. The second thing was really strange to me was Izzy's attitude. He was just mad. He was mad for no reason. Like, he asked for this fight. He wanted Paulo Costa, and he was injured, and whether it was real or not, that's besides the point. Izzy thinks it wasn't a legit injury, but he was mad. He was like pointing fingers at him, like, "Oh, is he gonna make weight? Well, why'd you take the fight if you didn't think he was gonna make weight?" And so what? There's just a lot of his personality. I don't know. You got to watch the interview or the press conference. But when I was watching, I was like, "What is he mad about?" Like, here's the thing: is you're one of the most talented young athletes in the world. Like, you are what everybody is seeing as the future of MMA. We are seeing it play out in front of us. You're young. You're a good-looking kid. You speak well. You've got talents beyond the cage. You do have talents on the microphone. There are many people who see you being a bigger worldwide superstar than Conor McGregor. as time goes on, you are the future of the UFC. You're the future of MMA. And he's like sitting there grumpy. He's like, and I've noticed as he's been, as I've seen him more in the UFC and I've seen him more in interviews, I've noticed this. He has to be mad at his opponent. And, his last opponent was Robert Whittaker. It's kind of hard to be mad at Robert Whittaker. One of the nicest guys in the world, laid back, doesn't really have any problems with anybody, doesn't really talk crap, doesn't really do anything, just says, we're going to go in there, we're going to fight. But he was making up things to try to get upset with Robert. And then now he's got Yoel. And Yoel is, again, one of the nicest guys in the world. I mean, Michael Bisping hated Yoel Romero. And Yoel Romero just sat there in the ring yelling out, I love you, Michael Bisping. So, like, he's a friendly guy. And this fight is so good that you don't have to sell it with, like, this bad blood. Like, this is such two talented fighters that I really think, first of all, a lot of the new UFC fans, a lot of the casuals probably know who Izzy is because they've built him up already. He fought Anderson Silva, and then they built up that last fight so good. So I feel like the casuals really know who he is. So they already know this kid's super talented. And then all you have to do is look at Yoel Romero and be like, oh, I want to see that guy fight. I want to see that. So this isn't a fight you have to sell on bad blood at all. And so this is a fight you can sell on looks and talent alone. But Izzy, so I don't think that Izzy's doing it to sell the fight. I think, truthfully, Izzy's one of those fighters that needs to be mad in order to fight. He has to not like you in order to fight. And actually, I truly see that as a weakness in fighters. Now, if you're a fighter who pretends to be mad or, does it to sell the fight, I understand that. But if you're a fighter who has to have some sort of anger or rivalry with the guy you're going up against, that's not really there. You have to manufacture it. You have to make it up in your head. I see that as an absolute weakness. I see that as an insecurity on Izzy's part, and I understand it. I'm not upset about that. I'm not mad about that. He's young. He's a young guy, and everybody's nervous going into the fight. Everybody, and even the oldest fighters who've been doing it forever, will talk about nerves, and they'll talk about being scared, and they'll talk about all these things leading up to the fight, and even in the fight, and emotions that they go through. But I think at a young age, when you go through those, it becomes an insecurity. At a young age, when you feel maybe like you're an imposter, or maybe you're not as good as everyone thinks you are, or you're just not as comfortable with the role that everyone's put you in, it becomes an insecurity. And so what you do to counteract that is you counteract that with anger. That makes you mad that you feel insecure. So what you do is you counteract that with anger, and you be super hyper aggressive, and you just build this narrative in your head that you're mad at the guy, and you have to be mad at the guy in order to fight. And I truly see that as a weakness. I see that as a weakness in a lot of fighters who just manufacture anger out of nowhere. And I think Izzy will grow out of that. I think that this is a phase. I think he's young, and I don't think this is a true thing. I don't think he's an insecure person by any means, but I think there are insecurities that he just has that he's going through. And so it's just kind of upsetting to see that he was just mad at mad at everybody. He was mad at Paulo Costa. I don't know why I say that wrong every time. He was mad at Paulo Costa. He was mad at John Jones. He was mad at Yoel. He was mad at everybody. He was just mad. He was just, everything he did was just said with like anger. And I do remember initially when he came in the UFC, it was all about having fun. I remember being like on the mic after fight, being like, I'm here for a good time, not for a long time. Like he was excited. He was young. He was excited. But now he's starting to feel the pressure of the magnitude of everything that's coming on his shoulders, that he is the future of MMA. And I think that he's seeing that now. He's feeling that now. I felt like he had to carry this whole press conference, which I do feel like that was put on him because, like I said before, there's not even a translator for Yoel. So I feel like he is starting to feel the pressure, and this is how he's reacting. He's reacting as if he's got like a grudge, and he has to be mad at Yoel. And Yoel just played it perfectly, man. Yoel there was a point when Izzy was questioning if Yoel's going to make weight. And again, I don't know why he was attacking that, because he was the one that asked for this fight. He said, I want the baddest man in the division. I don't want to wait around. I want to be active. I want to fight. Give me somebody. Give me Yoel Romero. And Yoel says, okay, I'll fight. And then Izzy gets mad at him for saying, yes, he wants to fight. Then Izzy acts like he's offended by him. That makes no sense to me. So anyways, he's saying that he didn't know if Yoel was going to make weight. And Yoel's like, oh, I'll make weight. I always make weight. I've been fighting. I've been wrestling since I was 8 years old. And I always make weight. And Izzy's like, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You don't always make weight. You missed weight 4 times. You've missed weight 4 times. Well, and he starts getting angry and calling Yoel a liar. And Yoel just stands up, and Dana gets scared because Dana's standing between him. Dana gets scared and starts, separating, trying to get in between them. And Yoel just sticks out his hand like, we're good, man. You don't gotta be mad. Like, I love you. Like, we're going to fight. You don't have to do this. You don't have to get upset. He just puts his hand out and shakes his hand. And Izzy like awkwardly shakes his hand because he's like, he didn't know what to do. Like, it was weird. It was one of those moments when normally a fighter gets up and has to act tough and has to flex and has to, establish his dominance, and Yoel just stands up and shakes his hand. I loved it. It was beautiful. So then the press conference finishes, and they go out and they do the face off, and Izzy's just upset or whatever, and then they turn and they face the crowd, and they're kind of standing there for a while, and you could tell Izzy wanted to was finally like, okay, this is over. I'm ready to break the tension. Like, I want to be fun, like he has been, and so he starts kind of dancing. And then Yoel starts dancing and immediately busts out a backflip into the splits to end it. And Izzy sees it, and you could tell immediately it's one of those things where you just got, this guy just one-upped you. This guy just showed you up. And so he wanted to get back. He wanted to get it back. It's like those moments in sparring. Like, I have those moments with fighters all the time that we'll be sparring. Like, someone throws a nice clean leg kick, and immediately you're like, I got to leg kick him back. Or, same with a jab or a hook or something. They hit you with something good, and then you're like, I got to get him back. It was one of those things. Yoel does the backflip into the splits. Crowd goes wild, and Izzy's immediately hands his belt over to Dana and starts getting into his little move like he's gonna do something. Then he catches him I can't like that. I can't just. It would be too. I lost. He conceded at that moment. There's nothing I can do to one up that. No, people expect Izzy to be a good dancer. He's shown that already, so they expect him to be able to do something cool. But they didn't expect it from Yoel. So when Yoel did it, it shut down the show. Everyone, the crowd went nuts. I loved it. So I have to say, this was the first round. This is the very first round between Izzy and Yoel. And I have to say, I give it to Yoel. I really do. Yoel won it. He kept his cool. He kept his composure. He did what he had to do. He didn't say a whole lot, but the two things he did won it. He stood up in the middle while Izzy was trying to be mad. He got up and shook his hand bro, this is not how we have to do it. And then the second thing he did was that backflip. I do have to mention though, another thing that kind of threw me off was Izzy was talking about how people have been complaining that he's never he needs to go up against a true wrestler, and that's why he chose Yoel's, because obviously his wrestling credentials, and one of the best wrestlers. One of the top 3 wrestlers in the UFC, and And he's like, I hope that he comes out and just shoots on me. And once I stuff his takedown 2 or 3 times, he'll know that he has to stand up with me. And that kind of threw me off because I've never seen Yoel do that in a fight ever. I can't remember at the time I've seen Yoel fight for a takedown, like really go for a takedown. Yoel doesn't go for takedowns a whole lot because he likes to stand and bang. Like, he doesn't care win, lose. He knows his wrestling's there, and he knows that if he has to use it, he can. But he's never like been desperate to get the takedown. Like, you've seen that in Khabib, that Khabib's been desperate to get the takedown. You've seen that in DC, that he's been desperate to get the takedown. You've never seen that in Yoel, to be desperate in a fight to go for the takedown. So I just thought this whole thing was real interesting. I enjoyed watching it because it told me a lot about what I think it told me a lot about Izzy. Now, am I saying that Izzy's insecure and he's going to lose this fight? No, I'm not saying that. Izzy is phenomenal. His stand-up is second to none. His ability to fight is just unparalleled by the majority of the world. And so I'm not saying that he's going to lose in any way. What I'm saying is what I've said. I think that he's young, he's got some insecurities, and I just think he's going about it the wrong way, and he needs to reassess how to approach this, because I feel like we've seen this model before and it doesn't end well for a lot of people. I even feel like John Jones was in that situation a lot, where he came in with one personality, that personality changed, and then he went wild, and a bunch of other shit happened, and we all know the story with John Jones. So, but obviously he stayed undefeated that whole time. So, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm not buying that he's this angry guy that needs to be mad at everyone that he fights with. I'm not believing that's truly who he is, and I just think he's feeling the weight of the pressure of the future of the UFC on his shoulders. So, let me know what you think about that. I always get into the UFC card. The Still Fist card. I always need to finish with that, because that's why we're all here. That's why I'm here. That's why I have a job. And, that's where you need to be on February 21st, is at a Still Fist fight card. So, the fight that I'm super excited about, the next fight that I'm super excited about, I'm actually not going to break it down or get into it very much, because someone already did it way better than I did. It's the Zach Partridge, Ryan Thaxton fight. And when I say someone already did it better than me, there's a new podcast out by another local guy doing. I don't know really what he's doing. This is his very first episode out, so I don't know all that he's going to approach. But his name's Jason Laporte. He owns Damage Plan Athletic Clothing. I don't know him too well. I mean, I've seen him at all the events, and I know that he always has a booth. So if I have any of this wrong, make sure that you contact me and make sure that I get it right. But I know he owns Damage Plan Athletics, I believe. It's a clothing line. And then he has a podcast called Semper Fit Nutrition. So I also know he's involved with the nutrition game. You can find it on Podbean. If you go to podbean.com and then just search for Semper Fit, you'll find it. It's the very first interview. He only has one interview, and it's with Zach Partridge, and it's great. Like, it's a great podcast. I really enjoyed it. Jason has a buttery smooth voice and does a great job in the interview. Zach, of course, I've had him on my podcast before. He does a great job. And they talk about the fight. They talk about this fight coming up, how it came to be. I guess Ryan called him out at some point on Facebook, and they had a fun little interaction back and forth. And they also break down a lot of their thoughts on a lot of the fights that are on the card. Actually, all the fights that are on the card. And Zach's a super knowledgeable fighter who pays close attention to all the local fighters. So it's a really, really well done podcast. And for it being his first podcast, I was blown away. It was a really, really good job. So make sure you check them out. Give them a follow. I I don't know exactly how it works on Podbean. I don't know if you can follow or subscribe, but if you can, make sure you do. I hope he does more. I hope he keeps pumping them out because he did a really good job. It was a really good interview. And give them a follow, give them a shout out, let them know that you listened and that you liked what they had to say. So I'm not gonna get into that, just other than I'm super excited about that fight. It's a title fight for 185 AMI belt. And Zach is comes out of one hit. He's a good fighter. He's a great guy. I don't know Ryan personally. I've never met him before. I hope that he gets. I know that Jason mentioned that he knows him, so I hope he gets him on the podcast as well, so you can listen to him as well. But he sounds like he's a good guy. I've never, everybody that I've talked to has nothing but good things to say about him. Says he's a respectful guy, and he's a good fighter. I mean, he's deserving of this title fight. So I'm excited for it because he called out Zach, which means he sees something that he thinks he can capitalize on. And when you have call outs like that, it kind of makes the fight a little more exciting because you have the champion who is the champion, rightfully so, and then you have someone who thinks that they know something, thinks that they have something in their bag of tricks that they can capitalize and win. So this is a fight that hasn't been thrown together because these are the two available guys. This is a fight that came together because one is proven that he's a dominant, undefeated fighter, and the other says, not so fast. I think I got something for you. So this is a fight that I'm super excited about, and I can't wait to watch it. But make sure you go check out that podcast episode, that interview. It's really good. Again, it's called Semper Fit. So like Semper Fi, the I believe it's a military motto. It was actually our high school motto as well, my high school year, our motto as well. But it's Semper Fit, and check it out. Go search it on Podbean. But as always, you can find us on. Sorry, my house sounds like it's about to fall apart. You can find us on Facebook at Steelfist Fight Night. That's where you can get a hold of us, be part of the Steelfist community, interact with all Steelfist fans. Also, if you are trying to get a fight, that's the best way to get a hold of us is on the Messenger. You find us on Instagram, Steelfist Fight. You can find this podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And these solo little sessions I do by myself was that redundant? Solo that I do by myself? Yeah. These solo episodes that I do, you only find on YouTube. So make sure you give us a follow, a like, a subscribe. It helps us out. Also, we're always looking for sponsors. I'm always looking for sponsors to sponsor this show. I could shout you out on every single one of these. I'm going to put out multiple ones a week, and people get to hear your name and your business. So won't cost you very much. So get a hold of me if you are interested in sponsorships, or if you know anybody who'd be interested in sponsorships. That's all I got for you folks. Watch the fights tonight. Jones versus Reyes. Chikagian versus Shevchenko. Good to yourself. Be good to each other. I love you.